The Switch, as we all know, was a smash hit that basically blew up Nintendo's bank account. I hope that bank was insured. Despite its success though, people are starting to tire from it, and for good reason. Being a technically handheld system released in 2017, its specs were already outdated when it first released, and since then it's been double outdated by the PS5 and whatever the new Xbox is named. The one thing the Switch had against those systems, besides its exclusives, was the ability to play indie and a select few third-party titles in handheld mode. But now the Steam Deck exists with much stronger hardware and a much larger selection of games from a variety of studios. Now that the hybrid ability of the Switch has been superannuated, what else does it have against the competition? Xenoblade? Combine the advantages the other systems have with the fact that Nintendo's lost a lot of goodwill over the past few years with a lot of controversies. Then it's safe to say that the Switch 2 may be in trouble. Yes, it will be successor to one of the most successful game systems ever, but so is this. Now don't get me wrong, even if the Switch 2 bombs, I highly doubt it could ever do as bad as the Wii U. A lot of the Wii U's failure was because of the Wii's target audience of non-gamers had already left for good by then, although the what the fuck is this factor also did a lot of damage. We already know that won't be the case here, since while interest in the Switch has dwindled slightly, it's still more than alive enough for Tears of the Kingdom to sell 10 million copies in 3 days. Jesus Christ, it's a lot of copies, like, seriously. How? With all the people complaining about the $70 price tag? It sold this much? Anyways, a lot of the Switch's audience are core gamers and genuine Nintendo fans who are already talking, speculating, and getting excited for a potential successor. So even if the next system is a Switch U dual-screen hybrid that looks like a 3DS but with a detachable top half that goes into a dock and turns the system into a TV and gamepad dual-screen, I guarantee it will still sell double or even triple the Wii U's install base by the end of its life. I'm actually really worried they'll do the dual-screen hybrid idea. Please don't, Nintendo. Drinking bleach would be a much cheaper way to commit suicide. But of course, not bringing back dual screen isn't the only thing Nintendo needs to do to get everybody to come back around too. As I said, the gazillions of controversies have lost you guys a lot of goodwill, and plenty of people straight up despise you as a company, Nintendo. So, here's my list of things that Nintendo needs to do to make sure the Switch 2 success story plays out like the PlayStation 2 and not the Wii U. What? Yes, I'm qualified to give my insight about this. I'm a 16-year-old with thousands of social disorders nobody's ever heard of. Of course, I am qualified to give Nintendo a lecture on how to run their gazillion-dollar company. Jeez. First thing they need to do, although I think this is obvious, beef up the specs. Seriously. They've been fine being behind hardware-wise for now, but their alternative hardware innovations can only take them so far, and I think so far is here. Their next system is going to have to sink or swim when it comes to hardware power. The Switch 2 is going to need to be at least as powerful as the Steam Deck in handheld mode, and even stronger when docked. If they swap out the current simple dock with a much beefier one that can significantly boost how well these games run on the TV, potentially even up to 4K, then we'll be sitting pretty. Another thing they'll need to do to make sure people come back a second time is a bit of a long shot, but I also believe it to be absolutely essential. They need to stop making scummy business decisions. Or weird ones, for that matter. To start, they need to stop pricing their budget titles like re-releases, Mario Sports, and 2D platformers at the same price as their large, high-budget games that have at least 10 times as much content. I honestly and legitimately like a lot of these games, but I still understand that they damn well aren't worth $60. They're also not worth $50. And an argument could be made for $40, but even then that argument would lose for most of these titles. Plus, if $70 price tags are going to be the norm in the future, then I'm definitely not paying that much for yet another port of Tropical Freeze. Keep those games cheap on the next system. Please. Something else they need to fix on a Switch successor is the awful online. It's basically a three-way coin flip whether the online works on the Switch mostly fine, has a good deal of frame rate issues, or is so laggy that the game in question is basically unplayable while online. Speaking of Switch Online, yet another main issue they need to address with the Switch 2 is their library of classic games. I honestly don't even really care anymore whether they're available via a Switch Online subscription or by buying and legally owning the game on the eShop. though the option for both would be nice. I just think they need to stop drip feeding us. It took us until nearly 6 years into the system's life before we got Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games on this thing. And we still don't have GameCube games. Plus, there's also apparently been some emulation issues with the Nintendo 64 library. I can't really say this firsthand though, because I don't have the expansion pack. It's a horrible deal. Nintendo really just needs to give us as much upfront as possible next time. Everything from the NES to the GameCube, and from the Game Boy to the GBA. It'd also be nice if they added Wii, though if they do, then I understand that Wii games could only be played in home console mode with the Joy-Cons. DS, 3DS, and Wii U games would unfortunately be pretty much impossible without the dual screen, however, which is unfortunately something we just know we're going to have to deal with, unless they go the Switch U route, which, as we all know, would mean the end of the world as we know it. Please do not make a Switch U, Nintendo, I swear to God. I don't want this to just be a Nintendo rant video, so I'll try to go back to normal suggestions soon. So let's see if I can name anything else off the top of my head to try and wrap this up. Oh, Pokemon needs to get their act together, and I don't think I need to go into specifics on that, because if you're the kind of person who watches Nintendo video essays, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. One more complaint about Nintendo before we get back on topic, although this one doesn't really have anything to do with the Switch or the Switch 2 or anything. It's more just a general thing. Nintendo's lawyers really need to stop killing people. My uncle who works at Nintendo and gave me this leaked screenshot of Prime 4 has been missing for months now, and I'm starting to think Nintendo's ninjas got him. Alright, pessimism over. It's time for more polite suggestions on what the Switch 2 needs to have on the system. Let's see here. Oh, well, it needs games for one. The Switch had a really strong launch year, and I think the best thing that could possibly be done for the Switch 2 would be for it to have an even stronger launch year, with a strong second year as well. We haven't seen a new Mario Kart since 2014, so new Mario Kart's a given. Maybe make the next Mario Kart more of a Nintendo Kart instead, Nintendo? No? Okay, that's fine. Just make it good. We've also been waiting a long time for a new mainline Mario game, so another one of those would be greatly appreciated. A 3D one would be preferred, but a 2D one would work very well if it were more akin to my suggestion in this video, instead of just another one of these. If it is 3D, then while I would absolutely love Galaxy 3 or Odyssey 2, I feel like opening the system with a sequel to a game that's not on it would be weird. Give us a brand new sandbox 3D Mario at launch, and then a few years later give us Galaxy 3. Donkey Kong's also been quite a while since his last appearance, so if those Donkey Kong Freedom rumors could have just turned out to be true and a 3D DK game is releasing in the Switch 2's first holiday season, that'd be fantastic! As you all know, I'm also scorching hot with anticipation for Prime 4, and I'm practically begging Game Freak for Pokemon Legends Rayquaza, so if we could get both early in the Switch 2's life, that'd be great, thank you. Now obviously we can't have everything in the first year, we need some time to space things out, but there are of course a lot of other series I want to see return. Luigi's Mansion 4, a new Smash Brothers, a new Kirby game, an Animal Crossing game that hopefully doesn't coincide the end of the world. I swear, Nintendo put it in March 2020 on purpose. They knew about COVID somehow. There's a conspiracy going on here. And I also want a new Yoshi game. Just in general, the Switch 2 needs a plethora of new games, even more than the current Switch has. Sure, it has plenty, but a lot of our beloved series got ports instead of full new games. The Switch 2 cannot lean on this, nor can it lean on people buying the system for the portability aspect, since not only does the Steam Deck exist, but I also heard the news about this while writing the script for this video. Granted, Sony's only dipping their toes in, this is basically the PS5U, but the competition is getting steeper is what I'm saying. If Nintendo wants to get as many non-fans to buy the Switch 2 as possible, they have to turn every exclusive they possibly can into a must-play. The big 3D adventures are a necessity, and I also feel like they need to take their smaller 2D platformer titles and then either turn them into 3D platformers or keep them 2D but then turn them into something along the lines of what I came up with here, again, because the get-to-the-end platformer formula has really been worn bone dry over the course of the past 38 years. But a constant stream of big AA exclusives, half-decent specs, readily available legacy content, and Nintendo not being a big bitch aren't the only things the Switch 2 needs. There's one more big one that the system could really use to make it a must-buy. Backwards compatibility. You see, for years people have been clamoring for Nintendo to make a new Switch model with stronger hardware so that they could finally play Scarlet and Violet with a higher FPS count than -3. If the Switch 2 has backwards compatibility, then along with being a Switch successor, it could double as a Switch Pro. This would make the people who probably wouldn't really care to buy a Switch 2 at launch buy it immediately just to be able to play some of their favorite Switch games at a higher frame rate. Nintendo could even leverage this to push some of their older Switch titles again on the Switch 2. I don't mean having them do ports again because I already stated that's a bad idea. No, the Switch 2 needs to take Switch cartridges and be able to transfer over digital data from the Switch, and for good measure have access to the Switch's eShop. No, this would be more of a whole marketing thing, with Nintendo pushing people to transfer some of their Switch games over to the Switch 2, or buy them on the Switch 2 with the Switch 1's eShop, in order for us to find extra value in a Switch 2 earlier in its life when the library is still small. Maybe they could even do some pack-ins. The main game they should be pushing here is, this. During the Switch's lifetime, Zelda's gone from one of Nintendo's most popular mainstays to a full-on mass system seller. However, we just got one. And it just so happens that making modern 3D Zelda games takes fucking forever. One of the things I think Nintendo should do to counter this is make a brand new 2D Zelda game. I predicted a Link to the Past remake in my Switch 2 predictions video, though I feel like that was a kind of dumb prediction that Oracle remakes feel more likely. But what would be better than either of those is a new 2D Zelda. However, despite that, there's no doubt a 2D Zelda game wouldn't be nearly as much of a biggie as a 3D Zelda would be, and it also just so happens that people are complaining that Tears of the Kingdom only runs at 30 FPS, so use Tears of the Kingdom as the face for the Switch 2's backwards compatibility. Maybe even pack it in with some consoles a little bit. Some other Switch games they should advertise and or pack in with the Switch 2 backwards compatibility: Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, because as we all know, they run like doo-doo. The gameplay's pretty fun though, so if people are drawn into actually trying it out again on the Switch 2, then they might actually have an opportunity to actually enjoy the gameplay. Bayonetta 3, that game had a lot of attention on it after taking so long to come out after the initial reveal, and then it barely cracked 1 million copies since it came out the same month as both Scarlet and Violet and Sonic Frontiers. Since Bayonetta 3 took so long and didn't sell that well, it's safe to say that the Switch 2 will be waiting on Bayonetta 4 for quite a while, but maybe it's possible that Bayonetta 3 could get a second life on the Switch 2. I feel like Xenoblade 3 should also be pushed on the Switch 2 for similar reasons. It did a good deal better than Bayonetta, and Xenoblade in general has come a long way in the past few years. But of course, its latest game only came out a year ago, and taking into account the usual 5-year development cycle and the fact that the Switch 2 will probably be sometime next year, that means Xenoblade 4 will be waiting until Switch 2 Year 3 at minimum. That's not terrible, but I still feel like bringing more attention to it by advertising its latest Switch release on the Switch 2 would do some good things for Xenoblade 4. A big one that I feel like should get some Switch 2 attention is Pikmin 4. It looks really good, but it's also a niche series, and it's coming out late into the Switch's life, so it'd be really good if they pushed it on the Switch 2 a bit to make sure it doesn't get stranded on the first Switch. Especially considering how it'll probably fit in graphically. Seriously, I don't see anybody talking about this, but Pikmin 4's visuals look gorgeous. My god. Then of course Smash Ultimate should get pushed, since keeping Smash in the mainstream is definitely very important for Nintendo, as it gets them a lot of attention. And the final game I feel they need to push on the Switch 2 with backwards compatibility: Splatoon 3. I'm of the opinion that they should have held this game for the Switch 2 anyways, since while it's a pretty significant upgrade to Splatoon 2, in my opinion Splatoon 3 doesn't have anything substantially new enough besides the all-around improvements to warrant being on the same system as its predecessor. I could be totally wrong though, since people seem to love Splatoon 3. Regardless, that still leaves us with a wait until Splatoon for the Switch 2, but of course, we have a modern Splatoon to front-run Switch 2 online gaming right here! Unless, of course, Nintendo has a plan and we're actually going to be getting Splatoon 4 right out of the gate on the Switch 2, despite Splatoon 3's recent release, thanks to developing both at once or reuse assets or something. When we do get a new Splatoon on the Switch 2, though, I feel like they should really do something new and interesting with the formula. Several new modes based around the turf war, but with a twist. A campaign with a more interesting level structure than having 1x1 levels and 1x1 worlds. Local multiplayer that doesn't require multiple systems. There's a lot of possibilities. I love me some Splatoon though, so I hope they make something good. And that's it. I've hashed out all the things that Nintendo needs to do to have a successful Switch successor. There's nothing else. Okay, yeah, no more Joy-Con drift. Please, Nintendo. I literally cracked my left Joy-Con open to fix the drift a few weeks ago, and I nearly permanently broke the L button. Please fix this. Also, just a better feeling Joy-Con design in general would be nice, please. Now, even if they do all this and more, I highly doubt they'll pull a PS2 here. Maybe they'll pull something crazy I didn't even think of that isn't super gimmicky and makes everyone sell their PlayStation so they can afford a Switch too, but there's no saying whether that will work or not. More likely, if they get their act together, then their next system will be popular, but it won't crack 100 million units. However, that's still better than most of their other home consoles, so I'd still consider that a success. But now that all that's out of the way, it's time for the real question. Why the shit do I care so much about a video game company's financial success on their next system? Yeah, I don't know why, honestly. If they won't even give us a new F-Zero, I might as well buy a Steam Deck right now.